Hello, you are listening to the Charles Bonnet Syndrome podcast. My name is Shaimond, and today's guest is Kim Kimberley. She has CBS and is going to discuss her experiences living with this condition. So how are you doing today, Kim?
I'm fine, thank you, Shaimond.
Thanks so much for joining us, and you maybe can hear from the accent she's joining us from the UK, because Charles Bonnet affects people from all over the world. So thank you for joining us today. I'm sure it's going to be a great conversation.
You're welcome.
So can you tell me, what is the eye condition that you have?
Yes, I have binasal hemianopia. So the centre of my vision's gone from the nose side halfway through. So each lens of my eye is missing vision. And this happened through an assault. I got headbutted by a man, which caused me to go back, and I hit the back of my head unconscious. But in total, I had 3 blows to my head. And that's when I started to get hallucinations.
I'm so sorry to hear that. You are actually the second person that I've spoken to on this podcast that was assaulted and as a result of the injuries developed Charles Bonnet Syndrome. So that goes to show, which most people already know, but it's confirmation that it doesn't matter how you lose your eyesight, you can still have Charles Bonnet Syndrome. And then also that confirms what all of the medical experts say, that you see with your eyes and with your visual cortex, with your brain and various different things.
Yeah, that's what a neuro-ophthalmologist said. He said he thinks because I had the bang to the back of my head, it's the back of the head that is responsible for our visual processing. So that's what's caused it.
So how long after that assault did you start having CBS hallucinations?
Well, I'd say quite soon after. I ended up in an intensive care unit not long after the assault. And I remember seeing these scary, they looked like gremlin kind of creatures, but they was tall and they was peering at me around the curtain. And I couldn't move, and there was dark shadows with big eyes. And I remember telling the staff, and they said that strange things can happen when you're sick, and it's probably the medication. It took me years to discover that it was CBS, and it took years to discover that my sight was missing as well. And as the years have gone by, I'd say that the visuals have become stronger and more frequent and even more scary.
Wow. So that's an interesting statement, how you said it took you a little while to really realize that you were having issues with your vision. Is that because of the type of issues that you were having? It wasn't so clear cut, like it was maybe certain parts of your vision. Was it like coming and going, or how were you not able to really know that you were having these vision problems?
I think because this guy had knocked me unconscious, it's obviously a brain injury, because I'm still suffering post-concussion syndrome now. But I think when he first attacked me, my memory had got wiped. I'd forgotten the alphabet, what my children was into. I was in and out of sleep for months and months. So when I was seeing things, I don't think I was recovering. So it messed me up completely. So I wasn't sure about my whereabouts, what was going on. And I remember seeing patterns on the wall, but to me it looked like old wallpaper coming through. And I remember saying to certain people, can you see that? And they'd say, see what? And I'm like, the yellow on the wall. And people are staring and they're like, no. And I just think, oh, I just brushed it off. I didn't see it as anything bad. And then I started to see my lampshade on the ceiling, the lights that move. And then when you look at it and make direct contact, they'd stop moving. And I just thought my imagination must be quite vivid, because if I feel like I'm seeing something and then when I'm looking, it stops. I wasn't really sure what was going on. And then I started to see shadows in my bedroom, and a tall black man, just a shadow, with a hat on. And he'd be standing at the bottom of my bed. And I'd start to see snakes moving, and I'm blinking to try and get focus. And sometimes they'd go, but then they'd come back. And then I felt like a little child because I was really scared, but I didn't want to say to anyone, oh, I'm seeing things in the dark. So what I used to do is I'd put the light on and I'd leave my bedroom door open. So I'd have the hall light on, so that'd be a glimpse of light shining into my bedroom. And I realised that stopped the hallucinations. And I remember I didn't know who to tell, and I told my mum and I told some other people, and they was trying to say something must be going on spiritual, like you need to go to a spiritualist and get some healing and things like that. I was a bit skeptical about clairvoyance and psychics, but because I started to see people and animals and geometrical patterns, I was thinking maybe they aren't being truthful. Maybe people can see these things. So I went for healing, but these things didn't help. And I think because I always kept my bedroom light on, it prevented the hallucinations for a long time. So I didn't think anything of it. I think because I was so used to keeping a light on that glimpsed into my bedroom, I didn't think, oh, I keep getting hallucinations because I prevented it. But then I moved house. And when I moved house, that's when I realised, oh my God, the yellow stained walls that I was seeing that I thought was old paint coming through, I'm seeing it in the new house. So I started to think, no, there's something going on with my visual processing. It seemed like I was seeing branches or trees or flowers on the wall. And then obviously I forgot about keeping the light on. I'd turn the lights off to go to sleep, and I woke up and there was a man standing over my bed. So when he was standing over my bed, I've woken up and I thought, oh, this is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And then all of a sudden, his arms have moved towards me, and I screamed so loud. And I thought, I need to tell the doctors that I'm seeing things. I noticed that the cable wires, had moved like snakes. I got sent to mental health, and they done an assessment. And I've got complex PTSD because I've got this condition, and they know I've gone through a lot of trauma. They was trying to say trauma affects the body in different ways. And I was saying, no, I said, it's not trauma. I said, because when I turn the light on, I said, everything's fine. And I remember saying that I woke up out of sleep and I seen a baby in my bed, wrapped in blankets and moving, a bit like how you'd picture Moses in the little basket. And I seen this baby and I jumped out of bed and I've put the light on and there's no baby there. So when I'm telling mental health this and they're staring at me blankly, I know what they're thinking. And I'm like, I said, I'm not mad. I said, there's something wrong with the brain. I said, because I said, when I turn the lights on, I said, nothing happens. I said, it only happens when it's dark. So she said, do you hear any voices? And I said, no, I don't hear any voices. Do you get any smells? And I said, no. And they said, it's just visuals. I said, it's just visuals with no sound. And then she said, do you see anything in the day? And I said, the only thing I see in the day is patterns on the walls. Or if I look at things that are still, they look like they're slightly moving. I asked her for a pen and paper and I said, can I draw what I see? So I was drawing the patterns, the repeated patterns, and I give it to her, and she had put non-psychosis. It was just strange because they wasn't identifying that I had Charles Bonnet Syndrome, but they wasn't. The good thing is that they didn't think it was a psychotic diagnosis neither.
That's very interesting. And I do believe that medical professionals are doing the best they can and they have good intentions, but they're just unaware of Charles Bonnet. So they're going to talk about other things, psychosis, and even family and friends are going to talk about spiritual things. And I'm not even saying that sometimes those things are not the case, because just because you have CBS doesn't mean that you can't have some other kind of issue that's going on, or that spiritual things are not real. But in your case, it's CBS. So that was interesting that you actually had to help the medical professionals and say, hey, when I turn the light on, this doesn't happen. And you have to bring your own problem
Yeah.
solving skills to the table to help them help you.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. But then I think what's upsetting is it does cause me to break down and cry because the medical professionals, and it's no fault of them because I see so many people, but it's like then the notes aren't being passed on, or there's different opinions from each person. Like I remember sitting in hospital and I was seeing porcupine being drawn on the wall. I'm not sure if you know about the Warner Brothers. It's just a cartoon I used to watch when I was little. So you'd get Porcupine, Bugs Bunny,
Yes, yes.
Pluto.
Mhm.
So I was seeing all them characters on the wall. It was almost like they was being drawn on the wall. Nobody was drawing them, but I'd see one ear coming up, then another, and then the body of Bugs Bunny. And I said to one of the hospital staff, I'm seeing things, hallucinations. So she called me into a side room and she said, how long have you been seeing this for? I said, the whole time I've been sat in the waiting room. And then she's like, are you hearing voices? So again, it was the same questions. And I'm like, no. And she was like, smells? I said, no. So she took me for an eye test and she was like, I don't know what's going on with you. And the thing is though, because I said I've got binasal hemianopia, I can pass, I can, when you get me to read the letters from distance, I can read letters and I can see clearly. The only time that I can't see clearly is if I've got one eye closed. And then that's when half of my visual field has gone. But they are, some are agreeing, some of the people I've come across are agreeing that I've got binasal hemianopia, and some are saying that I don't. Because on a visual field test, I can at times pass the visual field test, but I don't know if I've been trying to look online and I don't know if anyone else knows much about binasal hemianopia, but because I've got my peripheral vision, it overlaps the binasal hemianopia. So when I'm just using one eye and half of my visual field has gone, my eye will automatically adjust itself to push back the shadow. So it will go and I get my vision back, but then the black shadow's coming back and then it will go. And this is what I'm trying to tell them. And I think if there is anyone listening from the medical field, because I'm also thinking of contacting Royal National Institute for the Blind to see if they can help. To me, the only way that you can tell that someone's got binasal hemianopia is, say, if some contacts were to be made, and then if you was to block out the centre vision, if you was to block out the peripheral vision and just make that, then it'd cause a patient to only use the centre vision. I know that all I'd see is complete blackness and I wouldn't be able to see. Because I also done a test where I'd got some goggles, swimming goggles, and I'd put black tape and coloured out the peripheral side. And the only thing I could look through was the centre and I couldn't see. Whereas when I've give the goggles to others and my children, they can see. So I just think more needs to be done to identify binasal hemianopia, because I don't think I'm the only person that has had head trauma or head injury where my sight loss has gone undiagnosed. So I'm just thinking there could be more like me where we've got sight loss, but the sight loss isn't getting picked up on.
It's interesting because the brain is so complex. And even if you have some issues with your eyes, it somehow works with your brain to affect your vision. So it can be very difficult sometimes to pinpoint what I'm talking. I'm not a doctor. I'm just talking just as
Yeah.
someone that's just caring and just a host of this podcast. But I've talked to many people now. I've been fortunate to interview many people, and they said that they, especially when you go back 30 or 40 years ago, or even 20 years ago, where they've been told that they had one condition for all of their life up until that point. And then they meet some other doctors and some other medical professionals, and some more advancements are made in technology, and they come to find out that they have a different condition, because it seems to be that some conditions are very similar except for one or two things or something like that. And they're always learning. So that could be the case with you. And that's what it seems like. I was going to get into that. Maybe some doctors think that maybe you have what is it, binasial hemianopia. And then some other doctors may think that you have something else. And that's actually probably not that uncommon to have multiple opinions. So I'm hoping that they can pinpoint this down, and I can put like your email in the show notes if any doctor wants to.
Yeah, I'd be happy to like do studies or help out. I've helped or gone down to take part in clinical trials because I'm really eager. There's a lot of us that are eager to get help when it comes to Charles Bonnet, but I've gone to Oxford University and I've gone to Cambridge University, and even they realised, I think at Cambridge, they agreed that I had binasal hemianopia, and they said it was down to the head trauma. And they said when the patient goes into hospital and they start saying that they're experiencing hallucinations, they said what they're trying to get through to medical staff is they need to, if they don't pick up on the sight loss straight away, they need to check if the patient's had any head trauma. Because it's quite common when they're listening to stories. But what they done, what was quite interesting when I went to Cambridge, is they done a normal eye test in light, like how you would, but then they also turned the light off and they got me to do things in the dark, and that's where they could see I was struggling. And especially when they put things in the centre of my focus and then got me to use one eye, I couldn't see. So I think there's a lot more tests or that could be done maybe to think, okay, yeah, it's Charles Bonnet Syndrome. I think a good one would be like how I done in the mental health team when I was drawing the kind of things that I'm seeing. And I'm only saying that because I watched a documentary and I've also spoke to another lady, and because it's so hard to live with, what they do to distract their minds is they paint what they see. When I was watching one lady on a documentary and she was painting the swirls and the circles she sees, I thought, oh my God, I thought that's the kind of things that I was drawing to the mental health team. So I just reckon, I know we're all different, but in some ways very similar. I do reckon if you asked a lot of us to draw the kind of patterns that we see, I think they would all have a resemblance.
That's interesting too, because there is some similarity, like people seeing people in period clothes, people seeing certain patterns and certain kinds of maybe animals or maybe more common than others. So as many differences as there are with Charles Bonnet syndrome, there are a lot of similarities too. One thing that's challenging from an outside perspective looking in is for some people, turning the lights on may help. And then for some people, you have to wear an eye patch. And then for some people, both of those things help, but then they stop helping. And then it's very unpredictable because the hallucinations can go away for a period of time and then come back. And some people, seems to be a minority, after a certain amount of months or years, it just goes away altogether. And then some people have for 20, 30 years. So there's so many variables here. And I think that might have something to do with the fact that there's different reasons and ways that people lost their vision. And there's different personalities that people have in a way that they respond to the trauma or the annoyance of the Charles Bonnet syndrome. And there's just so much to be discovered. But one thing I wanted to know is, how did you? I know you spoke to your mom, and I know you spoke to some medical professionals, and I commend you for that because that's not easy during the early days when you didn't know what was going on. But how did you actually come to find out what Charles Bonnet syndrome was and realize that may be something that you had?
Okay, yeah. Like I said, when they was putting non-psychosis, I didn't know what was going on and I was still in panic. I Googled silent hallucinations and Charles Bonnet syndrome come up, and I thought, it was saying back then, because it's changed now, hasn't it, the information? It was saying back then you would have had to have lost 60% of your sight or more. But now I think you don't have to have a certain amount of sight loss. But
Yeah.
at the time when I was reading it, I thought, I don't feel like I've lost 60% of my vision. And I was thinking, and it was saying it's blind for the blind. And I was like, I'm not blind. So I thought, still didn't know what was going on. And then I sat there and I got landscapes like that. This was like a completely different type of vision that I had. And it was so pretty. There was like big rocks. There was like a waterfall. The water was clear. And it's almost like a projector was being played in front of me. And it was like a slideshow moving. And I was really confused, but like kind of stunned because it was so pretty. And again, I thought, I'm sure I've read this somewhere. So I typed it in again, visions, landscapes, and it come up Charles Bonnet Syndrome. And I thought, oh, I'm not sure. So I went to Facebook and I wanted to see if there's a support group. So I then wrote on the support group, hi, I'm getting visions, I don't hear voices, it's not mental health, I don't understand what's going on. And I started to tell them about how I'm seeing animals, patterns, people, landscapes, and loads of people were writing back, oh dear, you've got Charles Bonnet syndrome, you've definitely got Charles Bonnet. It was strange because the CBS community knew that I had it before medical people did, because obviously, like I'm saying, even though you're saying the disagreement on binasal hemianopia, there's also the disagreement with Charles Bonnet syndrome, because I still haven't got the diagnosis. So when I went to not mental health, when I went for an eye check to the eye hospital, more because my one eye was drooping and I couldn't open it up, and this is when I seen the black shadow. They were saying, along with the neurologist, they were saying, oh, you've got migraine with aura, and migraine with aura causes visions. And I was saying, no. And I had to do research on migraine with aura and how it'll last for half an hour, these colours or the black dots. And I'm like, I haven't got that. I said, mine will last longer than an hour. I said, every time I close my eye, that black shadow that takes over half of my lens is always present. And I used to cry, and they give me tablets for migraine with aura. These tablets was making me worse because they was also triggering off closed eye hallucinations. So there's me and there's other people with CBS. When you close your eyes, like all these like bright colours, a bit like kaleidoscope, and they twirl, and it looks like you're going through a never-ending tunnel. Like it's just never ending. So I had to tell them that them tablets making the lights brighter, these colours that I'm seeing when I'm trying to go to sleep and I can't sleep. Mental health team said to try and take sleeping tablets. The sleeping tablets I will never touch again because they made the hallucinations worse. I was seeing like elephants in my bedroom. I seen Adolf Hitler,
Wow.
and then he went scary. He looked normal, and then he went scary. And then I seen Nicholas Tesla as well, and there's all these faces like flying towards me, and they look like people from the past. But when I seen Adolf Hitler, his mouth opened up and he had all these sharp teeth, and I was petrified. I did want to call like someone like a medical line, but I thought if I call them and say that I'm seeing things and I'm scared, they're gonna think it's mental health. I think this is when I'm back on the CBS support groups writing, and it really helps talking to others that understand. And I do think if it wasn't for these groups, I may, you never know, I may have been in a psychiatric ward believing that there's something seriously wrong with me.
Wow.
It's just, it is scary, but it's strange that I got Adolf Hitler and Nicholas Tesla. But I will say that because my dad had me quite late, and my dad was in the Second World War as a child. So he used to tell me about Hitler. And then his favourite scientist was Nicholas Tesla. So obviously I used to see images, and we'd watch documentaries. We do hear that things can be pulled up from memory.
Yes.
So I think, again, which is why I said the cartoons, I've seen the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland in my room with the big eyes and the big teeth. I've seen like Siamese cats. There was towels on top of my wardrobe, but in the dark, it turned to two Siamese cats, skinless, a mother and a baby, and they look scary. Some of the things look like things from a horror movie, and because I said it must pull up things from memory, I kind of regret I didn't know I was going to get CBS. But as a child, I used to get a thrill, and even like getting older, past 18 and stuff, from scary things. So as a child would sit down and would tell one another like ghost stories, and there was these children programs like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps. And then as I got into being a teenager and adult, I'd start watching horrors, and some of these horrors have actually come into my vision. I've seen the games master from Saw at the bottom of my stairs. I've seen the man from Jeepers Creepers. I've seen Alien from Alien vs Predator in my bathroom. So now I'm just like, oh, I've really got to be careful in what I watch, because I don't want it to play out in a
Yeah.
vision.
Wow. I actually heard many other people with CBS say that they actually see things from the past. Some see relatives that passed away. Some see Freddy Krueger, horrible things that they saw when they were younger growing up. And there is some research being done to see how much the memories affect CBS. But then I speak to people that say that they see things that are totally random and people they don't know. And I believe that's the case. But what I'm thinking is, I've heard that the mind doesn't really forget anything. It just may go to the back of the mind. So I was wondering, and this would be a question for a researcher, but I was wondering, is it possible that majority of the things that people are seeing are from memories? And even if it's a memory that they forgot or somehow it got distorted and changed slightly, that would be something that I would like to discuss with a researcher. It's just the mind is so complex. And really, honestly, from all that I'm hearing from the experts, this is coming from the mind. Even though someone's retina may be damaged or something else may be happening, is definitely the mind seems to be making up for the lack of image stimuli that it's not getting.
Yeah, I do think it must be, but then like sometimes like I went to the cinemas with my friend, and they know that I get hallucinations in the dark, and they're like, "Are you okay?" Because if I'm looking at the cinema screen, I don't see anything, but the sides of me where the seating area is dark, I do see things, but I just don't bother telling my friends anymore. So when he did ask, "Do you see anything?" I said, yeah, I said, I seen a dog on your lap. And then I said, and then to the left of me, I seen a lady's head, just the head on the seat. And then he started laughing. And I said, I just don't bother. I don't want to freak people out. Oh, I can see a lady's head on the seat next to me. And for some reason, when I'm with somebody, I'm okay. But when I'm on my own, I'm not. I was going to say as well, because you were saying how hallucinations come and go. I noticed that if we keep a light on, that like I've got a little lamp on in my room, it will keep the hallucinations away. But what started to happen, it's like my brain got smarter with the little bit of light that was in the distant corner. If the light's too bright, I won't be able to go to sleep with the light on. So it is a very dull light. But when I put the dull light in the corner of my room, the hallucination started again, and the lamp was moving around on the ceiling, the one that hangs, the lampshade. So what I'd done is I brought an LED strip light, and I put the LED strip light all around my bed, and it gives it a really good sensory feel, but it does it like a little smooth, like warm touch, and slowly different colours will appear through, and it's not too bright. But I found the fact that because there's different colours getting shown, it stopped the hallucinations in my bedroom. And I just feel like it's because my brain's being stimulated or it's being distracted, that it hasn't got time to play a vision because of the colours changing constantly in my room.
I'm glad you're actually finding different things that can work for you. And I never heard anybody use a LED light where the colors change. And that sounds like a great thing. I'm curious, have you ever tried to use an eye patch, and has that helped, like a thick eye patch, to see if that helps?
No, because obviously if I was to put an eye patch over me, that's when I notice I've got binasal hemianopia, half of my vision will go. And for some reason, when one eye gets covered, the other eyelid automatically tries to squint down. I can't keep it open as wide. I don't know why that happens. Yeah, so the only thing that kind of helps. What I will do is when I'm walking down the stairs or into my living room, because I haven't got like LED lights down there, and it takes me a while to get to switch on the lights. I find that I put my phone on torch, and I will always walk around in the night, because my toilet's downstairs, I will walk with my torch on, because if I don't walk with the torch on, I'll see scary things. Like, I think I've seen like spiders all on the wall, or a big spider coming down. And one time I thought my son was playing a prank, because he's got like curly hair and there's this coat that he likes to wear, like a puffy coat. And I come downstairs and I thought he was standing there, just not moving, not making a sound, just stood there doing nothing. So I screamed. I've put the light on to tell him off. And when I put the light on, he wasn't there. But my brain was telling me that my son was standing there. And even though I recognised or perceived it as my son, it was still scary.
Wow. So one thing that was interesting that you said is you said that you would actually see things on the wall and you thought it was the wallpaper or that particular house. Then you moved to a new house and you started seeing the new things. Did that freak you out, or did you just start saying that, hey, this is not the house when that happened?
That's when I started to know your brain is obviously playing tricks on you, especially when I started to clock when the light comes on, things stop. And it's like these lines that I see on the wall, I tend to see, if it's a white wall, I tend to see yellow. But if we're in darkness, and then the walls to me look black, but then I see a red or blue print patterns on the wall. Sometimes it moves like frequency, or sometimes there's spirals going on. There was one, I think one of the main ones, which I think is important to pick up, is like me and others were saying we were seeing lots of spiders on the ceilings. And because obviously I told you my dad liked chemistry and physics and stuff. It reminded, because he used to show me loads of microscopic bugs under the microscope. It reminded me of like loads of little microscopic bugs ceiling, like the way those moved, but they looked a bit more blown up. And when I'd close my eyes, I'd see like these bugs like moving. And then I thought in my head, if communication is being lost through the visual pathways, I'm like, what could we be seeing then? And then I looked up neurons within the brain and then the behaviors of them and how they move. And when I was watching videos and things, I thought, oh my God, that is what I'm seeing. So I started to take pictures of different pictures of examples of neurons in the brain. And I've put them on the CBS. And I said, please tell me I'm not the only one. And I said, when we are seeing spiders or stalks or little bugs, I said, I think this is what we're seeing. And there was lots of shocked faces and loads of people wrote back and they were saying that's what they see too. I also made a little video on TikTok and I had a brain injury, but since having a brain injury, this is what I see. And again, it was the neurons moving. And other people that have had traumatic brain injuries, they was like, oh my God, that's what I see too. And I remember telling the neurologist that I seen, I said, I think I'm seeing neurons within the brain. And she started laughing at me. But when I told the university students about this, I found it really interesting.
That's really interesting because I actually think, because some people, when they have CBS, they don't share it. They don't talk about it. And it's understandable because there's a stigma about hallucinations. But there are some people that become advocates and they speak about it a lot. So I really commend you for going on TikTok and sharing your story, because what happens when you become an advocate or when you share your story is other people say, oh, that's happening to me. And people will never say that if people don't share their stories. So I commend you for doing that. And everybody has to do what works for them. But I definitely hope more people start to share their story, because then people won't be so scared to speak out. And there's always going to be some people, even if it's one or two people, that says, oh, that's happening to me. So that takes some courage. And I commend you for doing that.
Yeah, I know you're still gonna get the skeptical ones. So I think I caused a lot of interest on one of them when I was saying I'd woken up and I'd seen a man hanging from my ceiling. But I used to watch Guinness World Records. I think it was Ripley or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's these people that can make their eyeballs pop out of their
I
sockets.
never saw that. That's strange.
Oh,
It's interesting.
oh yeah. So when I've woken up, not only was this man hanging above my bed, but his eyes was popped out, and I screamed, and my children had run in, and they was like, "What's the matter?" And my son's 16, and he's like, "What did you see?" And yeah, I think when it's people, I get scared the most. The other day, not long back, I'd woken up and there was a little girl stood to the left of my bed. And I know obviously that they'll go, and if you turn your head or look away and look back. So when I seen the little girl, I've screamed. No, I didn't scream at first. I'm like, oh. So as I've turned my head quickly, I've never had this, and there was a man on the other side that, oh gosh, and then that's when I screamed. And I did go into a bit of a panic, and my head went straight into the pillow, and I was like, just breathe, it's okay, it's not real. Obviously I put my head up and they've gone, but oh, it's so scary. Someone says, you know what's going on? Is there any way that you think it can calm you down? And I'm like, no. I said, it's just if someone was hiding and they'd jump out and you go, boo. You've always got that where you might jump. And I'm like, say if someone kept doing that to you, you might think, oh, I'm going to get used to it. But I said, if you don't know when it's going to happen,
Yeah.
it's still going to scare you.
That is so true. And also what most people say is that they get their CBS hallucinations at night. So at night you may be alone, the kids may be asleep, or you may be relaxed. And if you wake up at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom or something and you see something, it could be frightening. Because I hear people say in the moment, they know that it's
Yeah.
CBS, they know that they have CBS, but they say in the moment when you're seeing that hallucination, it's like everything goes away and you're frightened. And that's understandable because it's not easy.
Yeah, I was in hospital not long ago, and they turned the lights off for the patients to go to sleep. And I said, oh, I told you, I always tell them about my vision problems. So they let me keep a little side lamp on. But even then, I was in my phone. I think because I wasn't home, I don't sleep because I've noticed my hallucinations will get worse if you're in a place where you don't know. For example, like when I'm in a hotel, it's a lot more scarier because it's not my room. So there'll be more shadows being created or hallucinations. But I started to see, one minute I'd see like a person standing in the middle of the hospital ward, and I'm on my phone and I know it's an hallucination. And then it would like glitch or it'd go away. And then a few seconds later, this person is standing right next to me. But again, like I said, when I'm with people, for some reason, I seem to think, oh, it's okay. It's just an hallucination. But when you're on your own, it's so much scarier.
Yeah. So have your hallucinations decreased a little bit as far as the frequency, the amount of times that they're having, or how scary they are the further you get away from your assault? Is it improving or is it staying similar?
I think it's getting worse. I just think the way that I'm able to deal with it is improving. Like I said, and the LED lights. I reckon if I didn't have the LED lights, they'd be worse. But the patterns that I see, the geometrical patterns, they're 24/7. They will always be on the wall or on the carpet. Even if I look into my coffee, I see these patterns like moving around. I said it's like my eyes are a bit like a projector in itself. If you put a projector on a small square, that's how big the image would be. So something looking into a cup of coffee, I'm seeing the same type of patterns, but on a smaller scale. But then if I look up, say, even at night time, at the sky at night time, I'm seeing the same patterns, but they're so much larger because it's the sky that I'm looking at.
This actually goes back to I did a podcast with someone from the UK named Robin Davies, and he said he's lost all of his sight. He doesn't even have light perception. And he said with his CBS, when he sees stuff, he knows it's CBS. But he was thinking, and I agree with him, that CBS is more difficult for people that have sight, like yourself, because you
Yeah.
don't know what's real and what's not. And that's so challenging.
I'll give you a funny story is because when we know it's CBS and we don't hear voices and stuff, but I'm in an old built house. So the olden day houses, a lot of people use the back as entrance. So my house is connected to the neighbours, so we can all walk through one another's gardens, which doesn't really happen. Like, we're respectful, but I think one of my neighbours couldn't get hold of me through the front door. So she come round the back, but like I said, I just moved house. So I wasn't really used to this neighbour. And I seen like a lady, and I seen this old lady peering through the window at me, and I thought, oh, it's CBS. And then all of a sudden, she's gone, hello. And I got so scared because I thought, oh my God, I'm hearing voices.
Oh,
And I just
wow.
stood there.
That is something else. Yeah.
Stood there.
And
And
then it's
then,
one thing if the voice whispers, but when it's loud and clear right there, it's what is going on? Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it was a relief when I'm like, oh, she's real.
Yeah. And do you want to reach out and grab somebody? And if it's CBS, your hand goes right through them. But if it's not CBS, you're like, oh, I just grabbed this person.
Yeah, I went on holiday, like I said, because my brain, or I'm not used to the room. I went on holiday and I had the curtains closed, but the sun had come up, but I was still in dim light. I've gone to walk through a door, like it looked like an open doorway, but I walked straight into the wall. So my brain had put a door there that wasn't there, and that's also happened with a step. I'm thinking there's a concrete step, and I've gone to step on it, and my foot's gone straight through it.
Wow.
But yeah, so my latest medical person that I seen was a neuropsychiatrist, and I was telling him about the different visions and how my brain perceives things, and he said to me he's never heard of this, that what I'm describing is very unusual and it doesn't match up with people that have had a brain injury. He said, I'll tell you what it is. He said, you've got functional neurological disorder. And I started crying and I said, I don't have that. I've done lots of research on different diagnoses because I've been suffering this for years. And I'm like, I don't have that. And he's, you do? And I said, no. I said, there is something wrong with the way my brain is processing things. And I had to break it down like how I said. I said, if my cable wires are moving like snakes and then I can turn the light on and it stops, I'm like, clearly that is my brain not processing things correctly. And he went, exactly. He said, that's what I'm saying. It's functional neurological disorder. And I said, so where do we go from here? And he said, what you're going to have to do is accept the diagnosis. Are you going to accept the diagnosis? And I just stared at him blankly because I was crying lots and lots. And he said, until you accept the diagnosis, we can't help you. So I come out of that place crying, my eyes out on the phone to my friend, upset. But I have wrote a letter of complaint because it is, I said, it's very dangerous to be giving me a diagnosis that I don't have. Because if he's saying I've got to accept it, you could then be giving me tablets that I don't need. And this is what, it's really important that Charles Bonnet Syndrome, like all the medics know about it. But there's not, the communication's not going through. Like a neuro-ophthalmologist did put Charles Bonnet syndrome, but he did put a question mark next to it. And then when I was saying Charles Bonnet syndrome, I said, I've had a brain injury, that's where it's come from. I think because brain injuries got missed, and because I think this is where they don't want to say if I've got binasal hemianopia, it was on my records and now it's been taken off. And I haven't got a diagnosis. But I think what's strange is that the neuro-ophthalmologists and stuff on my medical records, they said that they've told me to get support from the low vision team. And they said that I'm also got support from Royal National Institute for the Blind, which is in the UK and Focus. So they help people with sight loss or visual impairment. But you've appointed me to these people, but you're not letting me know what type of sight loss I've got. I know what type of sight loss I've got, but I haven't got a diagnosis for it.
That is tough, but It's good that you're just not accepting what the doctors say. You're listening to them. You're trying to get other opinions. You're talking to people in support groups. You're doing research online, and you're just trying to do the best thing you can with what you have.
Yeah, Royal National Institute for the Blind. I don't know if they've got anything like this in America, but I thought what was a nice touch is I got some counselling sessions from them, but the person on the end of the phone, they're actually blind themselves or they've got sight loss. So it's nice that someone that has lost their sight can not only understand, but they've also got a role to play to help others. So I was thinking, even with Charles Bonnet syndrome, eventually, I think if it's not already in place, that would be a nice touch because I share a lot of my experiences and visions on Charles Bonnet syndrome. I think I'm one of the most active members, I'd say, because it lets you know on Facebook that I am. But when I write down what I'm seeing or what I've experienced, I do get people send me messages more personal and they're like, oh, I see what you see. And it's really nice when I've just had one man message me to say that he's got his diagnosis and he's really happy. I think you can just hear the difference in people's voices once they've got that diagnosis, how much better it is for them.
That's why it's so important that you continue talking about what you do. You've helped at least two people now, probably a lot more, because now they understand what could be going on with them. And then when they say, okay, well, this is what I have. And unfortunately, with Charles Bonnet syndrome, a lot of people don't get an official diagnosis because there's not really like billing codes you can write down. A lot of people are unfamiliar with the condition and they say, it sounds like what you have. Or they may say, this is what you have, but there's nothing that I can do. And sometimes they just don't write it on a piece of paper. It's by people sharing stories like you that's actually helping.
Yeah, I know, because I've listened to your podcasts a few before, and it is. I wouldn't say shocking, but I was quite shocked at how many people don't have a diagnosis for CBS. And we were saying with some of the ladies from the support group, now it's, I'd say now there's a lot more research happening, but we're saying, can you imagine the olden days, how many people must have got put in a psych ward? And really, it's Charles Bonnet syndrome.
That is so true. That is so true. Because nobody really knew about it. Obviously, Charles Bonnet spoke about it in the 1700s and documented it, but that stuff didn't get resurfaced until well over 100 or so years later. And it really didn't start getting talked about until like maybe the 90s and really the 2000s, where it really started getting a lot of attention and people started looking into it again. And it's just amazing. I don't know what, and then really, if you go back 150 years ago, society kind of wasn't really the way it is now. They may have not really
Yeah.
had psychologists and psychiatrists and different medical degrees and things like that. Obviously, they were doctors, but things were set up different. They did things a lot of times primitively, probably, and also natural medicines or old remedies. And some could have been good and some still work today and some don't. And like you said, spiritually, depending on your background, if you believe in God or how people look at things and understand things. So it's definitely just going to be one story at a time, one thing at a time.
There was one lady that got in touch with me because I was finding the closed eye hallucinations. That wasn't scary. It was the bright colours, the kaleidoscopes that twirl around all the time. But it was just, I didn't know how I was functioning on lack of sleep. And she messaged me and she said, try yoga. Yoga has really helped me. And I was going to say, because I've said this in a documentary I took part in, I said, I've started to do yoga and I find yoga has helped me with dealing with the closed eye hallucinations.
That is good to know because some people do yoga, some people do meditation. You also mentioned that the support groups have really helped you a lot. Can you discuss that a little bit? Maybe one or two support groups you've attended or how they've helped you?
Yeah, I think just when I first went on to CBS, and you can tell it's not big because there's only 3 support groups there, but I think going to the writing, and then people, you're not, this is what everyone said, we believe you, you're not mad, we see this. And I just think that gives you a sense of relief. And then Judith Potts, she does a lot. So she got in touch, and I've gone to seminars on things that she's held. And then I started to learn about the university students doing a lot of research. So then I was reaching out to them. And I'm not trying to be funny, but when you see a medical professional and they tell you, because some will tell you, you don't have Charles Bonnet Syndrome, that is something that old people get. And I'm like, no, it's not. They don't know, but I feel like they just shut you down because they've got their PhD or qualifications and they're not going to listen to you. Whereas I think when you go to universities and they're trying to do breakthrough science, they really listen to you. But I really felt understood by anyone that I've seen from the universities. And I spoke to the professors, not from the university, sorry, I spoke to one of the professors that runs one of the CBS groups, Scott from Australia. I think you've done
Yeah.
an interview.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, he's been really helpful as well. So they've been the kind of people that I've leaned on, or I've felt that are only a call or message away. But when I was going to the clinical studies, some of these clinical studies are advertised on the CBS support groups. So then when we say we're going, I then met up with another lady that I used to talk to a lot, and we've exchanged numbers. But we met up after, because we both stayed down Oxford when we went for studies or clinical trials. And it was really nice because my family come down to Oxford, and I do believe that they thought I was mad. And then meeting another person with CBS and then her talking to them, and then we was both laughing and saying we see the same thing. I think that kind of helped them think, oh, okay, maybe she's not mad. But they're not, the family and friends are still not interested when I talk to them about it. It's really, even though they're like, now they know that there's a condition called Charles Bonnet Syndrome, I still think I'm a bit balmy.
Okay. So that's what I was going to say. Did you give them some information about CBS? But it sounds like they do know that's a condition, but it's hard for them to understand. They still are on the toes wondering if you have anything else going on, even though they know about this condition. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think anyone understands or gets it unless they're going through it or they're researching it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that seems to be the case. Yeah. And then it could be a little bit different for different people. Some people like their CBS. Some people can tolerate it. Some people it absolutely turns their life upside down. And it depends what you see. If you have more simple hallucinations like patterns and things, or if it's more complex like animals or people. So it's definitely keeping everybody on their toes. But I'm so glad that you seek support and you found and you actually are helping people too, like through TikTok and Facebook.
Mm.
So that is really good. Where are you now with this? If you can like maybe discuss, because it's been a couple of years for you, right?
Oh, say 8 years now.
Okay. Wow. So over these 8 years, like where would you say you are now with managing it and everything, your hallucinations, like in general, like where are you now?
I think I'm managing it quite well. I just worry when I'm older, that's all. Also, if my sight loss gets worse, I think it's going to get worse. It's only because I see the struggles of family members trying to get help on the CBS support group, where the elderly will get really terrified of the snakes or spiders or a person, and they get, because it could be, I'm not saying that they have all, but there could be some dementia in there as well, and they may forget about CBS and then believe that it's real. And I just hope, I, I don't know how it's going to go when they get older, and then maybe when my children have left, or to me, as long as I stay at home, I'm fine. But walking around at night time can be quite scary. And I know you might think, well, why would you need to walk around at night time? But it's just over in the UK when winter hits, it's 6 o'clock. So yeah, I'm fine when I'm inside. It's just outside because I seen a black bag in the road and I was walking with my children and I thought it was an alien. And I was like, oh my God. And for that split second, I got my phone
Wow.
to record what I was seeing. And my kids are like, Mom, what are you on about? It's a black bag. And then when I looked, it was a black bag. But again, for that split second, I thought, oh gosh, even I've forgotten. Like, yeah, some of the visions are that real. You think it's real for that split second.
Yeah, that's actually good that you reach out for your phone, because when you take a picture and then you look into the picture that you just took and you don't see the hallucinations, that's confirmation that it's CBS. So that can be actually a good thing that you do. And the phone can do so many things for you. It can help you navigate. It can give you information. So that's good that you did that. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, but I'm just really grateful that I know what it is and that there's others that I can reach out to. So when you're saying where are you, I am quite happy. And like I said, if it wasn't for the support groups, I think I'd be in a different place. But I'm young and I understand what's going on. It's just frustrating with the medical field. I just don't want to be put on any medication that I don't need to be taking.
Yeah, that's good that you're cautious and you are aware and you're advocating for yourself. And also the fact that you mentioned that you're young, because a lot of people think that Charles Bonnet syndrome can only happen to people that are older. So that's good that you are not.
Because when I've seen a lot of studies or clinical trials that they're looking for people, it is, to me, there's a lot of focus on the elderly. And now they've started to focus on children. But I think I've said this in one of the meetings I attended. I said there doesn't seem to be much for the middle-aged groups.
So hopefully they can change that. And I realize that you got to do certain study, like certain people may have to be around a certain age or maybe even a certain gender, depending on the type of study that you're doing. But I'm sure they're going to change that. And eventually more studies and more money and research is going to be done.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, and I like what you're doing and what Judith Potts is doing. And like I said, I'm really grateful for the university students that are studying this as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and helping people and standing up for yourself, being an advocate and doing everything that you do. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And it's definitely making a difference.
Thank you.